Welcome to Scenario, the deep dive podcast for analysis and reviews. Today, we're diving into something that, well, it really touches all of us. Happiness and how it connects, or maybe doesn't connect, with success in the way we usually think. Our guide for this deep dive is Shawn Achor's thinking, especially from his very popular TED Talk. Have you ever stopped to think if the formula you're using, that the one for success and happiness is actually the right one? We're often taught, aren't we, that hard work brings success and then success brings happiness. But what if? What if that's completely backwards? We'll explore how our mindset shapes our reality and whether maybe being positive now could actually unlock more potential later on. Get ready for some aha moments as we unpack some common beliefs.
Absolutely. And a great place to start unpacking is that lovely story Achor tells about his sister Amy in the bunk bed. What's striking is how something potentially negative, a fall, some pain, gets instantly reframed by young Shawn. He makes her believe she's a unicorn.
Right.
And that little childhood moment, it kind of foreshadows the whole concept of positive psychology, doesn't it?
It really does. It wasn't just a cute way to stop her crying, was it? It feels like a preview of his life's work.
Exactly. That ability to shift the narrative, even with a bit of fantasy like that, it's key to his whole approach.
And this simple story, it leads into a much bigger critique he has about our systems.
He brings up that fictional graph, remember? And points out how education, business, they're often obsessed with getting rid of the abnormalities. Those dots way off the average line.
The cult of the average, as he puts it. That's such a crucial point. We're so focused on bringing everyone to the average.
That we completely miss the chance to study the ones who are way above average, the positive outliers.
Instead of just fixing what's wrong with those below the line, maybe we should be looking at what's going right for those excelling.
Yeah, intellectually, athletically, creatively, all those areas.
But isn't there some value in establishing, a baseline competence first, before focusing on the exceptions?
That's a fair point, sure. A baseline is important. But Achor's argument, I think, is that our obsession with the average can blind us to what's actually possible. If we only study average, we kind of limit our definition of potential, right? He argues that by studying these positive anomalies, we could actually figure out how to lift the entire average up. It's about studying success, not just fixing failure.
That makes sense. It's a shift in focus.
And it's not just anecdotes. He brings in the brain science later, how positive emotions actually, enhance brain function, dopamine release and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another concept I found really striking, medical school syndrome. Can you unpack that a bit?
Oh, definitely. Medical school syndrome is a perfect illustration of how our focus shapes perception. Medical students learn about all these diseases and symptoms, and they start thinking they have them. Achor tells that funny story about his brother-in-law, Bobo, being convinced he had leprosy after reading some symptoms.
Right. Haven't we all done a quick online search and diagnosed ourselves with something terrible?
Exactly. We've all been there. But the crucial point Achor makes is that it's not objective reality that shapes us as much as the lens through which we view that reality, our mental filter.
So changing the lens can actually change our experience.
Precisely. And Achor connects this to the bigger picture. By consciously choosing to adjust that mental lens, we can genuinely impact our happiness levels and, interestingly, our outcomes. Work, studies, everything.
Wow.
He even throws out that stat that only about 10% of our long-term happiness is predicted by the external world.
Only 10%? That seems low.
It does, right. But he says the other 90% is down to how our brain processes the world, our internal state. It really makes you think about, your own day-to-day perspective.
It really does. And that leads us right to the core of his argument, doesn't it? Flipping that conventional formula for happiness and success, that old chestnut. Work harder, be successful, then you'll be happy. Why does he say that's flawed?
Well, the fundamental problem, according to Achor, is that the goalpost for success keeps shifting. You hit one target, maybe you get the grade or the promotion, and immediately society, or maybe just you yourself, sets a new, higher target.
Yeah.
So happiness, which is supposedly on the other side of success, always stays just out of reach.
Like chasing the horizon.
Exactly. It's the hedonic treadmill idea in action. You never quite get there.
Right. So this is where the happiness advantage comes in. What is that exactly, and why is it so powerful?
Okay, so the happiness advantage is the finding, and this is backed by research, that a positive state of mind actually improves brain performance significantly.
So being happy makes you smarter or more effective.
Pretty much. Things like intelligence, creativity, energy levels, they all get a boost when you're in a positive state. Your brain literally works better.
And he had some pretty compelling numbers on that, didn't he?
He did. He cites research showing, I think it was a 31% increase in productivity, a 37% increase in sales performance, and even a 19% improvement in the diagnostic accuracy of doctors when they're in a positive state compared to being negative, stressed, or just neutral.
That's a huge difference, especially the doctors.
It's tangible, right? It's not just about feeling good. It's about performing better.
So being happy isn't just the goal, it's actually part of the engine. And that's linked to dopamine.
Precisely. Dopamine, released when we feel positive emotions, does two key things. Makes us feel happier, obviously, but it also switches on the learning centers in our brain. It makes us more adaptable, more open to taking in new information. It's a positive feedback loop.
Okay, so we get it. Happiness can actually drive success, not just follow it.
Yeah.
But how do we, actually do that? How do we cultivate more positivity day to day? Aker talks about practical strategies, something like 2 minutes a day for 21 days.
Yeah, he outlines several research-backed techniques designed to kind of retrain our brains to stand for the positive more easily. The first one is writing down 3 new things you're grateful for each day.
3 new things.
New ones each day. It forces your brain to actively scan your environment and your experiences for positives, rather than just defaulting to the hassles or problems. Think how often we focus on what's missing instead of what we have.
That makes sense. And then there's journaling about a positive experience. How does that work?
Right, journaling about one positive experience from the past 24 hours. This allows your brain to essentially relive the experience.
Ah, like a mental replay.
Exactly. It reinforces the positive emotions and the details, amplifying the good feelings and the lessons learned.
Exercise is in there too, right? That seems more physical.
It is physical, but Aker frames it as teaching your brain that your behavior matters. When you exercise, you take an action, and you often feel better or see results over time. It builds that sense of agency.
Okay, and meditation.
Meditation helps counteract the sort of attention deficit we get from constantly multitasking. It trains the brain to focus on the task at hand, improving concentration and calming that mental chatter.
Right, filtering out the noise.
Okay.
And finally, acts of kindness.
Yes, conscious acts of kindness. Like he suggests sending one positive email, praising or thanking someone in your support network each day. It not only benefits the other person, but also strengthens your social connections, which is huge for happiness, and boosts your own positive feelings.
So these aren't just nice things to do, they're like mental workouts.
It's exactly how he puts it. You train your brain just like you train your body.
So, wrapping up, we've seen today how positive psychology gives us this really revolutionary way of looking at happiness and success, all starting from, well, a kid falling off a bunk bed.
It's quite a journey from that story to the science.
Instead of chasing happiness as some kind of reward after success, the idea is that cultivating positivity right now, in the present, doesn't just make us feel better.
It actually boosts our ability to achieve those goals in the first place. It fuels the journey.
So, question for everyone listening.
Yeah.
What tiny steps could you take starting today to begin training your brain towards a more positive outlook?
And how might that shift in mindset impact your path to success, however you define that success for yourself?
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Keep following Scenario for more analysis and reviews on topics that shape how we think and live.